Hello, everybody. Welcome to the newest episode of the Theater Enthusiast podcast. I'm very excited to welcome our next guest. Last seen in City Center's Light in the Piazza, which if you have heard the podcast, aside from me talking about once repeatedly, you should know that Light in the Piazza is my favorite musical. When I sent them an offer, I was pretty much convelling to them about how Their Love to Me was like the best version of it I've ever heard. So please welcome James D. Gish. Yeah. Oh, yes. I love that your own like
Yeah, I do my own intros. I do my own sound bite intros.
oh, do you want to do your own intro now? Like,
Yeah, if I could, yeah,
yeah,
if you don't mind.
please. I'm just
Sure.
gonna sit in my
Oh, I was
chair.
already starting. What?
Oh, it's fine. It's just I'm gonna sit back. I'm
Okay,
gonna please.
okay.
Do I need to say your name or do you want to say it?
No, I got this. I've
Okay.
been doing it every morning when I wake up. Boom, 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 straight from Bullhead City, a tall, gangly nerd who doesn't know how he got here, James D. Gish. His mother cheers, everyone else stares uncomfortably.
Or you just like look at yourself in the mirror uncomfortably, be like, oh, this is
Yeah,
what it's like. Woo woo.
right.
Well, that's great. Maybe we should all do that. Just like look in the mirror and be like, this awkward person from this place. Boo, boo, boo.
This
I'll just like
socially
put
awkward
on,
nerd. Right.
yeah. Well, that's great to be an actor, socially awkward. Here we are. I feel like a lot of performers are, though,
Yeah,
socially
I mean, I
awkward.
think so. You know what's funny? I feel like I go through like seasons of it. Like there will be times when I'm a little more confident, and I'm like, no, I got this. And, I'm really good. And then there are other times where I'm like, oh God, how do I talk to these people? You
Yeah.
know? I think it also depends on the people too. And
Yeah.
I'm easily starstruck. So it just depends.
Oh, please. Well, I was telling you before we recorded, and I always talk about this, I feel like when I'm recording the podcast, but during these like virtual play readings, I've had some like, I worked with some well-known people and I was petrified and sweating. And
Mhm.
it's just like,
Right.
even though you're not in person, you're on a Zoom or a StreamYard, I was just pretending like, NBD, no big deal. I'm working with like Emily Skinner and she doesn't
Right.
intimidate me at all. And she totally
Right.
did. And she's like the loveliest person in the world. But internally, I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know what I'm doing.
I know. Well, and that's like the good thing to remember too, that I try to remind myself is that really like, it is a small industry, and if you're a jerk, people stop wanting to work with you. So like, all pretty much all of the like big, Broadway stars that I've crossed paths with, and and one like at a party or gotten to work with, or anything like that, they've all been lovely, and you're like, wow, yeah, you're just a human being. It's nice.
I have I have never named the name on the podcast, nor will I ever. But
Mhm.
there was a known, I use that in quotes, Broadway actor who was such a fucking dick face to me at
Oh, we
an
can
after
say
party.
that on this.
Well, you can cuss.
Oh my gosh, I can cuss on this podcast. That's great. You didn't tell me that.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Curse away. I just
yes.
don't get political on here. But they were set, and I was so excited about this person going into a show, and everybody knew how excited I was about it. And they were such a dick to me at this like after party for a show for like no reason.
Oh, that sucks.
And ever since then, I'm like, this person is an asshole, and I
Yeah.
will never want to work with them in any capacity ever.
Well, then like word gets around quick. You know what I mean? So like unless you're like Patty, like you can't get away with it. You know what I
That's
mean?
the
Unless
tone,
you're
by the way, because there's other Patties in the Broadway industry, like Patty Murphy,
yes,
who's
this
the
is
doll.
true. I forget. Yes.
Yes, Patty, Matt. I actually
Lapone.
refer,
Patty
I,
Lapone, in case if
yeah,
you've heard of her. Some people have.
I refer to her as Madame Lapone, and I've had for over 20, like over 10 years, ever since I read her book, her
Uh-huh.
autobiography. Like I just remember sitting in my old job, like at the desk, like reading it. And I was like, I can only refer to this woman now as Madame Lapone.
That's funny. She'd probably love it, actually. I mean, I don't know her, but
I don't either.
I imagine she'd like that.
Yeah. Maybe be like, I'd like bow to her and be like, you are Madame Lapone.
Adam Lapone.
Madame
And
Lapone.
she's sitting in like a large armchair in like a shadowy office, and she's like stroking a cat, and she says, "Thank you, Allison."
That is not what I envisioned, but
Oh,
I
oh.
just like expected her on like a throne.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know why I godfathered her. I immediately
But you know what? That weirdly also works for Patti LuPone,
wasn't she kind of the godfather of Broadway? I
or like
mean,
the
come on.
godmother.
I mean, if Broadway had a mob, you're telling me Patti LuPone wouldn't be the fucking head of that mob? Come
Oh,
on.
she would be. Who else would be in that mob? Let's see. Now, like, we're just theater nerding out for like the first however many
Who else
minutes.
would be in the theater mob?
Yeah. Who would be in the
Oh,
theater mob? Um, I can only think of Patty. I feel like Jackie Hoffman would be like a really good person to have in there.
yeah, I feel like Shoshana Bean would be in the theater mob.
Yeah.
She'd be a hitman.
You know, like
Um,
my dream, like I pride myself on being very good at casting things, which is something I'm going to talk to you about because I have a dream song for you to sing. And I've thought
cool.
about this like ever since I heard you sing. Um, like my new dream is to have Shoshana Bean and Jeremy Jordan star opposite each other in Moulin Rouge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever happen, but it is like
Uh-huh.
my new dream.
I mean, it's such a good show. Moulin Rouge is such a good freaking show.
Here's my problem with it. I love Moulin Rouge. I've seen it many times. I saw it when it was in Boston, out of town
Oh,
tryout.
mhm.
The Satine death kills me because it doesn't sound like she's dying. However, when I
I
saw
guess I don't
JoJo,
remember that. I mean, I remember her dying, but I guess I don't remember how, like, the delivery
it
of it.
just didn't, the delivery doesn't sound like she's dying.
Mm.
But when JoJo did it, because that was the last time I saw the show, was like a month or two ago, she actually sounded like she was dying. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
finally.
Nobody has vibrato when they're dying. You know what I mean? Nobody can sound that good when they're dying. Because, like, she's singing, right? Isn't she like,
No,
oh,
she doesn't sing. It's
oh,
not Les Miserables. Uh,
okay.
it's not
Every
Little Fall of Rain. Which is a
but
reference to
but I
you.
remember it being like that. Like he's holding her and she right? Is that not that's not it.
No,
That's
no. As someone who wants to do Moulin Rouge, James, I think you need to get your things
I
correct,
need to get my facts straight. You're right. I need to
which
get my
is
facts
another thing
straight.
we'll get into later because I do ask about dream roles and theater going experiences, which I forgot to tell you before we started recording. But anyway, that's like my big issue I had with the show. But other than that, I fucking love Moulin Rouge. I
Yeah, great
I
show.
love it so much. Anyway, we got totally sidetracked. We were Shoshana Bean, Jackie Hoffman, Madame Lapone. Anybody else? Do we need some males in there? I think maybe it should
Alan
be an
Cumming,
all-female mob.
all female mob. Yeah, the sisterhood.
Somebody needs to write that musical.
The Broadway mob
Yeah, maybe that'll actually bring Madame Lapone back to Broadway with her
with her
non-equity card.
right. So good. That
Yeah.
will always be funny.
Yeah. I mean, you have like the grand dames like Audra and Sutton, but I feel like mob wise, they just don't like work.
That's the thing. It's like I was when you once you said that, I realized how like kind and how much grace all of these famous Broadway women have because I'm like, I can't picture almost any of you being in
Mhm.
a mob, like certainly strong enough, but I'm like, you are way too kind and compassionate to be a mobster.
Yeah. Well, you could be nice and
Be a nice mobster.
yeah, why not? That's why you got Jackie Hoffman in there and
Right.
Showbean.
Shelby.
Showbean. Who else? We need at least like one more person. It's gonna really bother me that I feel like Emily
Um,
Skinner needs to be in there.
yeah, that absolutely
Oh,
makes sense.
Mary Testa.
Oh yeah. Mary is
Oh, and Jennifer Simard.
oh, I don't know Jennifer. Who's that?
Jennifer Simard, she was just in the uh Once Upon a One More Time musical. She was in Company. She's a Tony nominee for Company and Disaster, the musical.
Ooh,
She's a queen.
rock on.
I figured out I can do a really good impression of her from Once Upon a One More Time, which I'm not going to do on podcast because I'm
Okay.
sure it looks and sounds crazy.
I was going to ask, but I also don't know what she sounds or looks like, so it was
Yeah.
guaranteed to
Well,
be
you know,
good.
you can YouTube her singing Toxic. And
Uh-huh.
if we like ever met in person one day, I would do it for you.
Excellent.
Yeah. I also do a really good Groban, but that's a story for another time.
That's funny.
Yeah. Okay. So we have our mob family. Now let's go back to you. Where are you from? Which you
Uh,
already like, said in your like
right, right.
about
My
introduction.
so
You're
I was
what are they called? Like pump up people?
What, what do you
Yeah,
mean?
it's like to get the crowds going. You know,
Oh, like a hype.
yes,
I don't.
hype person. I had a dream about that last night too, that somebody was looking for a hype person. Anyway,
I
so
am a night person. So I was born in Las Vegas, and I
mhm.
lived there till I was like 10 or 11, and then my family moved to this really small town in Arizona called Bullhead City, which I loved. And so when I tell people where I'm from, I say Bullhead because those were to me, my more, my most formative
Yeah.
adolescent years.
Mhm.
Yeah, I had a wonderful time. It was a great place.
That's great. So what got you into performing?
I feel like I got into it a little bit later than most performers do. I really liked singing as a little kid, and then puberty fucked that up for me real quick.
Well, I don't know. You have a pretty great voice now, so maybe not as much as you think.
Thank you. It worked out, but we had a few rough years from like 13 to 16, or maybe 12 to 15.
Or is it still going? No, I'm just joking.
And we're still waiting for that
And we're
period.
still waiting for I just pretend with all of these shows I've been doing.
Right. Someday it's
Yeah.
really gonna come back
Yeah.
around. Fingers crossed. Yeah. So I really, when I was in high school, I wanted to be an athlete so bad, because I will say I'm so lucky that despite growing up in a small town, I went to a high school that actually had a really wonderful music and drama program. And if those didn't exist, there's no way I would be doing this now. So I'm really grateful for that. But those definitely still sort of sat in the shadow of sports, in this small town. Like people were obsessed with football. It was that kind of town where like everybody showed up for the football games, and so I knew I was never going to be able to handle sports like that. So I tried doing the other really cool sports like fencing.
I
And
think that's cool. I on my bucket list is to learn how to fence.
it's actually badass and a ton of fucking fun. I highly recommend it.
And like with your voice, you could do a lot of classical pieces and
As
like
I'm as
pieces.
I'm dueling.
Yeah. So like if you could do like, Count of Monte Cristo or like Scarlet Pimpernel and your fencing stuff can come in handy. See?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So did that, and I ran track. I was really bad at it. I did baseball for 1 year. I'm asthmatic, so like sports, it was just not going to be a thing. And eventually, I kind of got coerced into joining choir when one of my friends heard me singing to the radio and was like, "You should do it." And I was like, "Absolutely not." And then my mom was like, "You're going to do this." So I did it, and I fell in love with it. And then my school was doing Beauty and the Beast, and their Beast it was already cast, but their Beast had to drop for some reason. It was like I don't know. He had to leave the show, and so they asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, hell yeah. And then I never looked back. It
Was
was
this a straight offer or did you audition?
offer only for high
Oh,
school productions. I have been offer only for quite some time.
well, excuse you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I got into it, and then I went to school at ASU in Tempe, and I was a business major actually, just because I didn't know if I knew I loved doing it, but coming from that small town, I was like, I don't really know if I'm gonna have like the ability. I don't know if I'm really gonna be able to compete in a larger pond. And
Mm.
so I was a business major, but I picked that school because there were a couple of really good regional theaters in Phoenix that I could try to get work at while going to school, and I ended up doing that. And I just learned sort of how stuff works in the industry by watching these older, more experienced, really talented performers, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah. Did you think like, okay, I'm going into business, but I'm doing these regional productions more of the hobby? Or did you kind of see like business is my backup, but I'm doing these productions as okay, you have to
It was
verbally
very.
say things because
Oh,
people
that's
see you know.
right. It's a podcast. I'm over here like nodding and giving the eyes. Yes,
Yeah.
I the crazy eyes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
No,
Like
I
Patty
def
LaPone in her chair with her cat.
yes, I actually my alter ego is Madame Malone.
You know what?
I've just never told people that.
Well, you heard it here first, guys,
Yeah.
girls, and everyone in between.
Wait, what the fuck were we talking about?
I don't even know anymore. Backtracking. So, um,
Oh,
your
no, yes.
backup was the business and
Yes. At
regional
that
was,
time,
yeah,
yes,
was
I
like
knew
the
I
hobby.
was right. I knew I was hoping that that business would be the backup,
Yeah.
and that I would have the wherewithal to try to compete at a professional level in theater. And so it was like school was my day job, you know what I mean? And I went to class. Like, it's kind of sad. It's not, but it is. I was so invested in these theater productions that I was doing like constantly that I sort of stopped trying to make friends at school. So I would just like show up, I'd keep my head down, I'd go to my classes, I'd go back to my dorm, do my homework, and then I'd rush to rehearsal and I'd meet all my friends at rehearsal. You know what I mean? So I don't even keep up with anybody from Arizona State, all the people, like the people that I met there. You know what I mean? Because I was so engrossed in theater that those were the relationships that I ended up fostering into like long-term friendships. Basically, I'm saying I had no friends in college.
Okay.
So, and then a single tear fell down his cheek.
Yeah, very like cinematically. Do you
Very
think
sad.
because, yes, it's your profession and like theater and acting is kind of like a business, as I attempt to do air quotes. Do you think your business degree has kind of helped you with the trajectory of like your career and planning it out and all of that stuff?
Oh, certainly. I mean, especially, so I also do like concert work. I haven't done it as much recently because I've been fortunate enough to be busy in theater, but especially a few years ago, I did a lot of concerts, like especially around like the Southwest. I sort of toured around and hit various venues for a while, and I would draw up some of my own writers sometimes. And so the
Want to
business
tell the people what the writers,
yeah,
not
right.
writers,
I don't know why
writers.
we call it's a contract. A
Okay.
writer is a contract. It's a performance contract. So I would draw up my own, and I had a better sort of basis to negotiate and sort of how to discuss things like that, I suppose. So yeah, it came in handy a lot actually.
Do you have any like weird things on your writers, like only purple, like not purple
Like
M&Ms,
only green
M&Ms?
M&M.
Yeah.
I don't think I do. I don't think I do. You know what is funny? I used to always be like, is there going to be a refrigerator somewhere on the premises? And that was just because I would drink milk on stage during concerts, which is like insane. And you know what's funny? As I've gotten older, my body has shifted, and that's no longer a trick that really helps me. But for years,
Mhm.
it would like I don't know, just like the mucosal milk would just help to keep everything feeling good in between songs. So like I would have instead of water and tea, I would have like milk and tea on stage with me during shows like a psychopath. So I would make sure there was a refrigerator so I could keep the milk cold before the show.
That's so funny you mentioned that because so many performers are like, oh, when I'm performing, I don't have dairy, or like, oh, I just ended, my performance. So like now I can eat pizza for the first time in like a year.
Oh, totally. Well, I've always had like a dry system. Like I'm just a dry, like my skin is dry. I'm just a dry human being.
You
And
just
so
need to moisturize more. So
yeah,
that
and
would
it would
help the
just like
dry
make
skin.
right. I also rub the milk on my skin. But no, it was just like the milk, it's so thick and it makes you salivate so much and it stirs up a lot of good mucus and phlegm. And I know this is gross to talk about, but when you sing, you get used to talking about it all the time.
Mhm.
Singers talk about phlegm like the weather. So
Like Jonathan Groff is known to like shower people when he's singing. So
great diction.
yeah, I just remember like sitting front row of like Spring Awakening and like when he's singing like totally fucked, like the audience in the front row were just kind of like I'm
Right. Oh,
getting spat
oh
on.
God.
And I was like, do you know how many like Spring Awakening fans would
Would
love
pay good
to
money for
have
that.
like Jonathan Groff like spit on them while they're singing, like while he's singing? Like I can't wait for Merrily We Roll Along. And I'm hoping to see that projectile famous J Groff diction
That's so
spit
funny.
from the balcony.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
There's probably some weird, obscure Tumblr blog dedicated to John and Jay Groff spit online.
Maybe, probably. My favorite was like during, I think it was like the Hamilton on
Mhm.
Disney Plus, where there was like spit or something on his lip somewhere. And I was like, that's forever on video, J
Yeah, I
Groff.
do remember an uncomfortable number of Jonathan Groff spit gifs crossing, like just passing through the social media algorithms
Yeah.
when the Hamilton video dropped on Disney Plus. So
Mhm.
it's so funny.
Yeah. And he's like fully aware of it. And I don't think
Oh,
anybody cares because it's Jonathan Groff and he's everything. Anyway, so I'm once you're done with college and you're doing all these regional productions, which you've done a lot of, you did West Side Story, you've done Newsies, you've done Toxic Avenger, which I feel like it's not I've never seen it. I've heard of it. I don't know the music.
Best show. It's
Yeah.
some of the most fun I've ever had. It's camp at its best.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like another campy show I recently saw. I maybe Once Upon a Warmer Time
Chuck,
was pretty great.
Chuck was really campy. That was really
I
fun.
haven't seen it yet. It's on my list.
I loved it. Alex Newell is not a human being.
Yeah, they're not. Although
Like,
even if at Glass House Tavern, they're still like, yes. If you ever
like belting in the middle of Glass House Tavern.
or you just like hear them just do
Uh,
like a note and you're like, there they are. There they are. Yeah, but I also like have your resume up. You played Lord Farquaad. Did you have to like be on your knees the whole time for that?
Yes, I absolutely did. I keep that on my resume, even though it was years ago, because I want people to know that I think I'm still funny and should get to audition for funny parts. I
Well,
think I, I,
Fiyero has some lighthearted moments
he
and
does, he does.
Wicked, you know?
No, yeah, I had a shit ton of fun doing Lord Farquaad. It is, I mean, I love campy. So like Toxic Avenger, Lord Farquaad, they're the same. I mean, very different, but like just shtick and like
Yeah.
chewing scenery until your teeth are like ground down to nothing. And I just love that.
Are there any like camp type musicals that you would want to perform in? Or,
I'd
like,
love to do Toxic Avenger again now that I'm older, actually. Any campy musical. Of course, I can't think of any right now, but like camp is one of my favorite forms of entertainment.
yeah. No, there was Emoji Land. I didn't see that.
Didn't see that. No, I didn't see it. I heard it was good though.
Just trying to think. I keep going back to Heather's for some reason, but that wasn't really camp.
Love to play JD and Heather's someday. Because I went by JD until I was like 18.
And
So
what made you change that? You're like, I'm going to college. I need to be more professional sounding.
it wasn't even that actually. It wasn't really my choice. My very first rehearsal at my first I would like semi-professional production. It was at a theater that like where they like pay you a stipend, so you make some money doing it, but it's not really enough to live on. It was the first show I did out of high school when I was starting school in Phoenix. It was Christmas Carol. And at the first rehearsal, I went around and I introduced myself to this lovely couple, and their names were Nate and Julian. And I was like, my name's JD. And they were like, well, what's your real name? And I was like, James. And they were like, well, we're going to call you James. And then they walked me around to everybody at the rehearsal and they were like, hi, guys, this is James, not JD. This is James. And they were just, they were just being funny. But I realized that I liked it. So I decided to keep it. And now Nate and Julian are two very close friends of mine, have been since then.
Well, I guess maybe like depends on the day and your mood when you go outside. Like, am I a James today or am I a JD?
Yeah. JD
Yeah.
likes the Coors Light, but James orders a Tito's Martini extra duty.
Yeah. JD's walking around with like backwards baseball cap and James is walking around in his tuxedo.
Yeah, James wears a cheap tuxedo.
Yeah.
Right. Fake
From a
blood.
rental at Men's Warehouse. I have no idea. I've never been there. I don't know what they do.
A Men's Warehouse.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm
nice
in,
place.
oh, I would assume so, but I've never shopped there because I'm not a man. Anyway, so you ended up in Nashville. Do you want to talk about how you went from like Phoenix Regional Theater and working? Well, before you even went to Nashville, what were you kind of hoping for? Like once you graduated college and you were doing all these regional productions, like where I can't speak apparently. Where were you hoping to go from there?
I think, my goal by the end of college was just to have enough experience to be able to get my equity card because frankly, I don't know what the requirements are to get your card now because I feel like it keeps changing. But when I was at that age,
I also
you
feel
had
like you're still young, so calm down.
tell that to my niece. But when I was, I think at that time you needed like 50 accrued weeks of work at a union house in order to qualify for your card. And so my goal was to get 50 and then to get my card and move to New York City and become a Broadway star in 1 week. Of course, like that's everyone, that's everyone's dream. That was the dream.
That only
Um,
happened to Katie Rose Clark when she was in college and she
and
auditioned for
Kristen
Piazza.
Chenoweth kind of had a similar story to that.
Who?
Kristen Chenoweth, I
I
think she
don't I don't remember that story, but I just know like Katie Rose Clark, she was like in college, auditioned for Piazza, and then she replaced Kelly O'Hara.
yeah, like nobody big deal. That's
Yeah.
fucking great.
Now she's starring in like Merrily We Roll Along as well, and she was in
Oh,
Wicked.
shit, good for her. That's cool. Yeah, she was a Glinda too. I know that. Wait, what was the question? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I get sidetracked a lot. We get sidetracked a lot on this
Right.
podcast. You wanted to move to New York and become a Broadway star within a week.
Right. And
Mhm.
then right within a week, obviously. And then so I was getting toward the end of college, and again, Bullhead City, I there was this great concert association, it still exists, that they bring great talent from around the world actually to come and do concerts at our high school's auditorium. It's actually this really beautiful, like 600 or 700 seat theater. And I went to, I was in college finishing up, and they were like, hey, we're going to have this group of tenors come through. You should come and sing with them, like as an alumni thing. It'll be fun. And I went, and of course, like these singers, like I showed up, and these poor guys, like in hindsight, how awful that like they just show up at a tour stop, and then the buyers at the tour stop are like, hey, so we're going to have you sing with a kid from the high school. And they're like, what? They're
Did
like,
not
no,
forewarn them before they came to the city?
oh, what'd you say?
They didn't forewarn them, like, oh, by the way, when you end
I
up in
don't
the
think
city.
so. I
Oh,
think they
okay.
just like showed up and they were like, "Hey, so we're gonna have." No, no, they did because we discussed like what song I was gonna sing and everything. But still, it was very shortly before. And so anyway, I'm sure they grumbled a lot, but they were nice to me. And I sang "This Is the Moment" with them, and they're the like sort of like the lead in their group. David Wise is actually a producer out of Nashville, but he used to tour with that group like to get his performer fix. He would
Mhm.
say for part of every year, and he just really took a liking to me and my voice, and he was like, I want to work with you. And we ended up this was probably in January, and we ended up recording in like August. Well, we did the orchestra and the choir recordings in July, and then my voice, we added in August.
Mhm.
And we did an EP. It was only 5 songs, but they were all original arrangements, really well done. And I mean, it was actually really swanky. Like we recorded at Warner Brothers and at Ocean Way, and we had a 53-piece orchestra, which is absurd. And we had like a 12-person choir, but of course they would like layer the choir, you know what I mean? And these singers were so good, it was unbelievable. So it sounded like there were like 50 of them, and yeah. And then I recorded mine, and we released in October, and then I mostly did concerts off and on for the next like year or
Mhm.
so. And then I ended up booking a tour, and I missed theater at that point and wanted to get back into that too. And then I did the Les Mis tour, and I've just sort of been doing theater from there.
Yeah, so your album is called,
It is called So in Love, and it is still available on iTunes
I know it's
because
also on like the top something of classical.
it was, yeah,
Yeah,
for
you can toot your own horn a little bit here, James. Don't
right
like,
for the first week that it was out, we were in the top 10 on the classical chart on iTunes, which was very cool because at one point my
Mhm.
album was actually beating Andre Bocelli's album, which was
Wow.
really cool for like a day. But you
And
bet that I took that screenshot as soon as I saw it.
are there like James D. Gish fangirls out there because of your album?
I I mean,
You
I
could
don't know. I
say
don't really care
yes
about this.
or no.
I mean, yes, yeah, I guess
Or what, do
so.
they call themselves like Gishians? Like, do they
Oh
have a
my God,
fan
I don't
name?
think there's I don't think there's ever been like a name devised. But I know there like are a couple Instagram accounts and stuff, and there were a couple people who would sort of like follow and go to like several concerts rather than just one, which was really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was really exciting. That was kind of wild.
Yeah. Can we come up with the fan name for them? Like JD Gishians or something?
Is the Gish. Well, Gish rhymes with fish. I know a friend, actually, my buddy Kevin. When I got Wicked, he was like, "Oh my God," he was like, "Your people are going to call themselves Gish's fishes,"
I
and
like
I
that.
was, I think I love hate it. I love
Yeah.
hate it. Gish's fishes. So no one's adopted that, but
Yeah.
Kevin thought they would.
You know, if there is another album coming out, I think that's what the fans should call themselves. And I think you should also, solely based on an Instagram that I saw of yours, maybe add a rap to your album.
Oh, oh, you saw Lil Gishy.
Oh, I did see a little bit. Well, you posted it on Instagram. You kind of
Yes.
can.
I certainly did. The story behind this,
Mm.
because this is just so absurd. So I was leaving Wicked, or I was in my last few months of Wicked, so it was earlier this year, And Christina Doucette, who's a good friend of mine who was in the cast, who's now in Here Lies Love, we ended up leaving on the same day, which was like wonderful. But she was like, I don't even know how this came to be, but
Mhm.
she was like, I want you to write like a poem or something like that with everyone's names, with like all the cast members' names. And I was like, what? And then I was like, you know what? No, I'll write a rap. I'll write a rap. And I think it was maybe originally just going to be about her. Like I was gonna write a funny rap about her. And then she shows up the next day and she hands me this paper bag full of single dollar bills. And I was like, hello? I was like, what is this? And she was like, well, I went around to the cast and I took $1 from everyone who wants their names featured in this rap. And so at that point, I was like, wow, okay, so this is actually a thing. And I got a list of like 20 something names. And I waited until the end of the contract, and so it became a joke. I would show up every day, and a different person would be like, "Where's the rap, James? Where's our rap, James Gish? Where's the rap?"
Mhm.
And so yeah, like in my last week and a half, I ended up recording with. I had my friend Katie Roden do cinematography, and I just like wore these stupid sunglasses and used a cane that I had left over from Halloween and like my bowling shirt from the Wicked bowling team, and I just acted like an idiot outside the Wicked, outside the Gershwin, and I spliced it all together, and I wrote this dumb rap where I wrote like one line about everyone who put their names in the pot, and then on my last weekend, I played it in the green room, and everybody had a good time, and it's absolutely absurd.
And there we are.
And
I
there
don't
we are.
really know how to transition from that. That was great. Well, I mean, if you're listening and you want to see the rap, again, it's on your Instagram page.
It is, and
So
I'm pretty proud of it. I'm not gonna lie. It is because, and it will show you just how much I like camp because it's absurd.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe that should be like your next album, like James D. Gish Goes Camp.
James D goes camp.
Yeah, and
Go
then it
camp.
could be you outside like camping
Right. I was literally just gonna
in
say
a
it's like me
clown.
with like a little sausage weenie outside a tent.
Yeah,
That's really funny. Or it's me roasting like a microphone,
yeah.
like
And
holding a mic over the fire.
you can be in like a clown app or as like the Toxic Avenger.
Hmm. That's actually so good. Or it could just be called camp.
Yeah, why not? Listen,
I
camp,
love
but
it.
James D. Gish for Gish's Fishes.
God damn, that's actually really clever. That's so funny. Not me considering trying to do an album of just campy music, just
Or
so I
listen,
can.
I mean, if you have like any concerts in the future that you want to do, you could just be like, I love camp. Here are all like the musical theater camp songs I love. You can have like
Right,
special guests come out as like, if somebody come out as Veronica, you put on a trench coat, you sing a song from Heather's.
right.
There you go. Boom.
That's so good.
Thank you. See, I'm a good director in my head. Anyway, so I'm how did you book the Les Mis tour? Like, how did that come into your life?
Oh, it
Also,
was totally.
sorry, I want to sidetrack a little bit because you talked about like how you got all of these things, but how does one get like their agents and their managers? Like, how did that happen for you?
That is the golden question. I feel because there really is no standard way. Everybody does it differently. And
Yeah,
I think oftentimes it takes a little bit of luck and being in the right place at the right time, which can be the most frustrating part.
yeah.
There are showcases people can go to, or pay to perform in, which I think is sort of screwed up, but it is what it is. But the way it worked for me, it was actually so when I did my concerts in Vegas, there were some like little publications and articles like in the newspapers and stuff like that about them and little advertisements and stuff. And this producer in Las Vegas asked me if I would want to come and do a show at Caesar's Palace, and because they did this like great jazz lounge show called Cocktail Cabaret, which was so much fun.
Mhm.
And he, after I worked with him, he was like, "Hey, I know some people in New York. Like, let me put you into contact with them." And so that's how I got my manager. And my first agent actually came through my guest star that I had with me most frequently, especially in my concerts in Las Vegas. Her name was Susan Anton. Her name is Susan Anton. She was is a very famous actress. She was really big in like the 80s. She was on Baywatch. She did a bunch of Broadway shows, huge star. And I loved working with her and getting to sing with her. She's the coolest. She was such a great mentor for me during that time. And she hooked me up with my first agent. And so when I came to the city, I had a meeting with him and we hit it off. So we all started working together.
Great. So let's talk now about Les Miserables.
Mhm.
So you were doing these concerts and all of that. So how did the audition go for that? Any callbacks? What have you?
It was actually like the easiest process of my life because I received the audition through my manager, I believe, and it was for like 2 days later. Of course, I already knew the music, so I showed up and I sang a couple Angel Ross songs because I was going in to understudy him because that was the position that became available. And then I got the call back that night, and the callback was for the next morning. And I showed up the next morning, and I had a 15-minute callback, and I got the offer like a day later or 2 days later. So the whole thing was like 2 days.
Mhm.
And then I just went out and toasted and had a great time, and then I joined.
Yeah. So from that to Beautiful, do you want to talk about how Beautiful came into your life?
Yeah, it was very bittersweet because they came into my life basically at the same time. I got Les Mis, and then the day that I was flying out to start rehearsals for Les Mis in Los Angeles, I had a call back here early in the morning for Jerry Goffin on the Beautiful tour, and I was maybe on my way to my like second day of rehearsal, I think. So this was just a few days later, my second day of rehearsal for Les Mis, and I got the call to offer me Jerry on the Beautiful tour, which was leaving that fall, which was just a few months later. So I ended up leaving the Les Mis tour just after like 3 months. But you can tell nobody can see it, but I have the Les Mis poster up in my apartment. But because God, I love that show. I could have done it for so long. So the timing was just like heart wrenching. You know what I mean? Because it was like, oh, I can't like turn down. This is Jerry's such a great role and so challenging. But I ended up not getting to stay at Les Mis for that long.
Mhm. Well, I mean, also, if you think about it, you were understudying, and this for Beautiful is a principal role. So
Right.
don't feel
Totally.
different. You actually get to perform every night as opposed to just like waiting in the wings.
Well, I mean, I was in the ensemble of Les
Oh,
Mis
okay.
every year, so I did get to perform. But yes, I was covering the principal, and in Beautiful, I got to play the main male character. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I think the most important question about Les Mis was at like when you die, where on the
Mhm.
barricade were you flopped over, or were you just on the floor?
No, I was on that damn barricade, and it was fucking awesome every night. God, the way I loved doing that show, like getting to pretend to. I'm also like I'm a massive, excuse me, a massive Lord of the Rings fan. So like I just went into full battle mode. Like I swear to God, I had the best time in those sequences, those like big fights. You're just screaming and shouting and like shooting. Oh, it was so much fun. And I still have like they used to call it like barricade elbow or barricade bruises and stuff like that because the barricade really is just a barricade. Like you think that it's this really safe set piece. No, it's just a bunch of pieces of wood that are all just like screwed together in random places. So there are like not sharp pieces, but like, rough pieces of wood jammed, like just jutting out in every direction all over this giant set piece.
Yeah.
So it's kind of impossible to not beat the hell out of yourself as you're performing on it. And
Mhm.
I was like center stage on the barricade, and I had this I think I was the last one maybe actually that gets shot, and so like a spot hits me for a second and I like and then like do this big dramatic fall forward, and it was the bomb.
Yeah. Did you at any point, because you said you're a Lord of the Rings fan, scream "Thou shall not pass"? Well,
Well, it's You Shall Not Pass, Allison.
I,
Come
I,
on.
I, whatever. I don't watch Lord of the Rings. I,
um,
I did have a Legolas cardboard cutout when I was in high school, mostly because it was just Orlando Bloom, and like everybody was obsessed with him, including myself at that time.
that's so funny.
So he's like long gone now in a garbage somewhere. But
I thought you were gonna say. I was like, no, Orlando Bloom is very much still
it's
with
right
us.
here. See, I mean, I have a Henry Cavill calendar, but other
Oh
than
my God, that's hilarious.
oh, my sister got me that for the holidays, but yeah, no, he's right here. No,
That's hilarious. I don't think I ever screamed any Lord of the Rings lines, but that's definitely what I was channeling
yeah.
when
Well,
when
I feel like I have so many ideas for your camp cabaret now that I think there's like a Lord of the Rings opera or something that exists in the world. Like you need to come out as Gandalf. Like it's gonna happen. Oh man,
the
so good.
freaking yeah,
Oh man, there's gonna be so many costumes for your cabaret. It's gonna be great.
so many quick changes.
Yeah. So how long did you tour for Beautiful?
I toured with them until the pandemic shut us down, which so it was about 6 months. And then when the pandemic was ending, I did a few regional contracts, and then I went back out on the tour for another 5 or 6 months before I got Wicked, and then I left Beautiful just a couple months early for Wicked.
What did you do during the pandemic to keep yourself, like your creative juices flowing?
I took up piano, so I started taking piano lessons from my good friend Alan Plato, who is actually our music director on Beautiful, but he's also based out of Arizona, so that was great. So I did that, and I'm a really avid writer. I write a lot. I write songs, and I write books more so. Actually, it's a very it's just another great passion of mine is writing that, and I write a lot of like young adult fantasy stuff because I was just so obsessed with stories like Lord of the Rings and Harry
Mhm.
Potter and all of that stuff as a kid. So yeah, I delved into that a lot more, and I joined like a writers guild, and so I would meet with this alternating group of writers like several nights a week over Zoom, and everybody would like bring in a section of their book, and we would look at it and critique it, and so I
Yeah.
learned a lot. That was really great, and it kept me sane. And
Mhm.
I did like a couple, virtual concerts and stuff like that, and a couple little singing gigs in person here and there. But yeah, that was most of what I did.
Yeah. So getting back to the writing, because that's actually really interesting and nothing I knew about. Did you like, are any of these like online published? Do you hope to publish them, or are you writing like a whole series of stuff? Because I just started reading, I'm looking at the book right now because I can never remember the title, The Court of Thorn and Roses.
Oh yeah, that's like the
The big one right now.
it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah, I started to read it because I'm like, everybody's talking about, I'm literally only like 5 chapters in, and I bought this book like a month ago. So
I'm pretty sure
clearly
it's
I'm a
steamy.
reader.
I'm pretty sure that book is supposed to be like a very good steamy time.
You know, sh-
It's all we can. Oh, or so we can hope. So we can
or
hope.
sometimes somebody needs to read a little smut, I guess. So, but that's not the point.
It's
The
unfair.
I'm sorry.
No, never mind. What?
Oh, now we're getting really crazy. No, I just like because it's a fantasy book, and and I don't really read anything, but you mention it, I'm like, oh, I have this book right here. But so anyway, publish. Do you want to publish?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to publish, and it is something that I think means as much to me as performing. But it is even harder to become a successfully published author in today's market than it is to become like a Broadway actor. It really is because as our society develops, there is just it seems like demand for books is slowing down, because people's like social media is slowly like cutting away at people's attention span a little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, I felt the effect on me,
Mhm.
and so books just aren't selling as well as they used to. So agents like publishing agencies and literary agents are being much more selective, all the time.
Yeah.
Um, so I looked into it a little bit, but the pandemic it just really taught me that you have to be able to dedicate a lot of time over a long period of time to do it. And I would like to publish the traditional way rather than self-publishing, just
Mhm.
so that I have a team of people who know what they're doing, know how to properly market, know how, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Otherwise, I'd be guessing on my own at, how do I market this book? How do I do this and this? So it's something I'm hoping to do someday, and I have no idea when it might happen, but we'll see. But in the meantime, I'm just I've only completed a couple of manuscripts, and like once I read that some famous writer, I can't remember who, said like you write your first book and you throw it away in a drawer and you never show it to anybody. You write your second book and then you put it away in a drawer and you never show it to anybody. And you write your third book and then you show it to people. And and it's funny because I'm on my third book now, and it's actually the first one that I want to show this to people. I think maybe this could go somewhere because I feel like it has potential to be pretty good. So we'll see.
Yeah. It could be like that theory of like the first pancake, where like the first pancake doesn't come out that good. So then you do the next one. So that could kind of also be the novel writing. But it's interesting that you say you also write songs and you have this passion for writing, because you can turn that into a musical or a play,
Oh yeah,
something like
absolutely. I
that.
mean, I've never attempted a script,
Hmm.
um, you know, uh, but I've read some really beautiful scripts. Some scripts that are so descriptive, not just in the like outside of the dialogue,
Yeah.
like the physical descriptions are so detailed that it's like, I'm like, wow, this is a novel. It's just,
Yeah.
it's restructured on the page, so yeah, I'd love to do
Yeah.
something like that someday.
Yeah.
But
Tennessee Williams was very good at describing all that, what you were just saying.
yeah, so cool.
Not to
So
like
yeah,
playwrights that I don't know personally because it's Tennessee Williams, but yeah.
so yeah, I'm keeping all possibilities open. I know I would love to do more writing in the future, and of any medium. You know what I mean? Whether it's for screen or for stage or books. So we'll see.
Yeah. So now we're gonna transition back into how Wicked happened. So you were on tour with Beautiful. How did Wicked come into your life?
Excuse me. I mean, yeah, it was very much the traditional way. I got the breakdown through my agents or my manager. I can't remember who got that one for me. And I just remember being like, okay, this one, I really got to put my foot in it. So I like worked on the tape for like a week, and I was like, this thing has to be perfect, and I was really proud of it. And, because I had not been on Broadway. So in my mind, I was like, there's no way that like a job like this is going to go to somebody who's not even been on Broadway. I was like, if this was for the understudy, maybe I could get it. But I was like, they're not even going to look at me unless this is like the best tape I've ever done in my life. So
Mhm.
I worked on it for a very long time, and they liked it. And so I flew out, they had me fly out to New York, and I had an appointment, and I, excuse me, pardon me, we might have to cut that out. I'm so sorry.
Oh no,
I
I don't edit, so it's fine. You paused, you coughed, we move on.
Okay. So anyway, I came in, so I flew into New York City from the tour, and I lied to my stage manager on tour. I was like, oh, I'm just I'm just not feeling well. I think I need to take the day off. And I'm like
I think you
in
were
the
just reliving the moment you just had. You were like
exactly.
coughing,
Yes, that's what it
phlegm.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I flew out to New York, and I was in the room for the callback for a total of like 8 minutes. And I remember leaving just like feeling devastated because I walked out of the room because they were very cool. They were very cool about it. They were like, okay, great. Thank you. Let's do the next scene. Great. Thank you. All right. Thanks. Thanks so much for coming in, James.
Mhm.
And normally when you're in a callback and like they really like you can sort of sense this like leaning forward energy, and that they're a little more attentive, a little more friendly, or like open to wanting to talk with you a little bit and get to know you. But these guys they were super chill, super cool. And I walked out of that room and I was like, oh my gosh, they didn't even have me do the last scene. Like I didn't even do the full packet. And typically, and it just goes to show you never know what they're thinking, because my thought was they're clearly not really looking at me because they decided they just needed to move on to the next person. You know what I mean? So I left like devastated, and I called my mom and I was like, I can't believe I flew out here and I spent all this money and I'm not even going to get it. And then I found out that like they kept 2 of the tapes from that day, and I waited for like 3 weeks, and then they were like, hey, do you have videos of you dancing? And I was like, yeah, but not good enough that I want you guys to see it. Because they had been like self tapes I had done for other stuff. And I was like, well, God, if I knew the fucking people and the producers at Wicked were going to see these tapes, I would have worked harder. So anyway, I sent them these dance tapes. And then a few days later, I got the call.
That's great.
Yeah.
So how was it making your Broadway debut? And what was it like getting the phone call? Like tell us all the things.
I mean, it was incredible. There's some things that words just fall short of really describing. It was unbelievable.
Mhm.
Not only to get to make my Broadway debut, but to get to do it in an iconic show and an iconic role. It was huge. I got the call in Bullhead City, actually, which was so kismet. So I was on vacation, or not vacation. We had a layoff week from tour on Beautiful, so I happened to be home, and so I was able to like go home and tell my parents in person,
Mhm.
which was really, really exciting. I've never seen my father scream and cry in the same like the span of like just 20 seconds, but he screamed and then he immediately cried. And it was just so cool. And then I was like, all right, let's find a bootleg so you guys can see what the show is. And so I was like showing them videos of what Wicked is and telling them all about it. And we were like toasting champagne at like 11 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, it was just really special. And then I had a ton of friends show up. Actually, on my Broadway debut, though, I was finishing Dancing Through Life. Or no,
Mhm.
we were in the Ozdust Ballroom, which is the next scene. And I'm not a dancer. I'm not a good dancer. I'm barely a mover. And so I was like on my final dance move with Glinda, and I felt like hot shit because I was like, you just did that. In my head, I was like, you just got through all that choreography and you didn't screw it up. And what do I do on the very final move? I sprain my ankle.
Yeah. Wow, way to
Like,
like have you be like subconsciously humbled. Like,
I
I'm
know,
hot shit, JK.
truly, the Cosmos were like, okay, there, buddy. Here
Oh,
you go. Here's
Bouncer.
a little
Yeah.
Cosmo balance for you. So I sprained my ankle and I limped off stage. I got through the rest of the scene, limped off stage, and they were like, what happened? Because they could see it. And I was like, I just need ibuprofen and ice, like right now. And I need somebody to wrap my ankle. And they were like, can you keep going? And I was like, I fucking have to. I was like, everyone I've ever met is here tonight. It's my fucking Broadway debut. And I was like, even if I was going to hobble for the rest of the show, I was going to take that bow. I was not going to call out mid-show in my very first show, and it was a rough show. It was not a great performance because I was in a lot of pain, but I don't want to say that it was a rough performance. Internally, it was a rough performance because when I got done and I was limping, with the stage door, people were like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Oh, I sprained my ankle at the beginning of the show," and they were like, "You did?" And people had no idea, which again just also shows how even when we feel like an imploding star on stage, a lot of it doesn't read out there, because people
Yeah.
are just overwhelmed with all the bells and whistles going on, and if they're not looking for it, a lot of little issues are overlooked, which is thank God. That's all I can
But
say.
I believe that wholeheartedly. Like I remember when I was in college and I was watching like a college production of like whatever show it was, and my old roommate was working on it, and she's like, "Oh, this part of the show didn't work." And I said, nobody in the audience would know that because if they don't know that like that light cue was supposed to happen, how like in the audience, like they're not going to know there was a mess up. And that's like the same thing with anything. I mean, unless it's like completely obvious. Like I think it was like when like Broadway came back with Waitress, like, and I've seen the show a couple of times, the wrong pie was out for like their first night. So like that you kind of knew, but like other than that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, most of it doesn't read. I think I did feel some extra pressure doing Fiero because there are so many people who know it backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh God, like if I say the wrong words or if I really screw up a line or you know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
it's like people will know. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So thank goodness I don't think there was ever, knock on wood, I don't think there was ever a time on stage that I like went up on a line completely.
Yeah.
And had to fudge a line the rest of the line. I don't think that ever happened. But I was always
But-
afraid of it.
And if it does, you're human and that happens. And if people get really like "Oh," about it, like that's on them.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
what do they call it? Like the Society of like Tight White Pants, or like what are the
oh,
fear?
it's called the Brotherhood of Tight White Pants,
Mhm.
and
You go
the
like in
Brotherhood
a group
of Tight
text
White.
message, like
Yeah,
start
we've got a
normally
secret
about.
text message thread, and we all meet in our white pants at midnight on October 30th. I don't know. No, and it comes from this little white sign that has been there for like 10 years that Derek Klena made when he was there. And I only know it's him because the sign that says the Brotherhood of the Tight White Pants is on the back of a schedule that says Derek Klena, like a weekly schedule. So he just took the schedule, wrote the Brotherhood, and stuck it up on the wall, and it's been there for 10 years.
Yeah, you've talked about what it's like going into a show where other people have performed the role. Do you want to talk a little bit more about it on the podcast, just in case people haven't heard you talk about it before?
I mean, it was it's intimidating. I mean, look at the guys who have done Fiera before me, Derek Klena, Aaron Tveit, Andy Carl, Norbert. I mean, like huge, Broadway star names, and they're all phenomenal and also unique in their own interpretations. And like Justin Guarini, who just freaking killed it. And Once Upon a One More Time, he was a Fiera.
I
There are
cannot
tons of them.
even explain. Sorry, I'm like going off right now, like how fucking brilliant he was in Once Upon a One More Time. Like I just, ugh, I would love a show of just him as Prince Charming. He like he was so fucking and it just like on a total side note, like I thought that show was so fun, and it just like saddens me at close because it had so many like brilliant moments in it. Sorry, I'm going
No,
off.
no, I get you. And yeah, and Justin Guarini is freaking brilliant. And so it
Yeah.
was just, and there are bootlegs of them, all of them online. You know what I mean? So I couldn't help be like, oh man, I'm about to be compared to like all of these industry
There's
legends. And
also bootlegs of you as well. Did you not know this?
Oh, of course I know this.
Well,
You
there's no Dancing Through Life, which is the one that I needed to see, which I could not find, but there is As
the
Long as
Dancing
You're
Through
Mine.
Life line on there? I mean, I know I have bootlegs of Dancing Through
Well,
Life.
I didn't
There
see it
was
on
one that got
YouTube.
deleted, I know, which I don't know why it got deleted, but there was one at one point, and it was really high quality, but it got erased.
You know, it's really like everybody knows that they're out there. So like when Leah Michelle went into Funny Girl, the reason I was like, all right, I have to see her in Funny Girl now was because all of these bootlegs that were put on YouTube of her, but weirdly they were not taken down. So I feel like the producers were like, no, leave these up. So
Right.
this is like a weird, like a good marketing tool to like get people. I mean, it worked on me but to get them to see the show. And that's also the same thing when like Mamma Mia was on Broadway. I used to do merch at Broadway shows, and Mamma Mia was like the main one I worked at, where you can't film during the show, but they let people film the mega mix because to the producers, like that's a good marketing ploy,
Right.
to like have people like see the show, like, oh, look at this mega mix and how fun it is.
Right, right. Yeah, frankly, I don't know what determines like what gets taken down and what doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've got no idea.
I don't know either. But you're up there. And let's watch now. It's taken down because of this podcast.
Right,
So,
I know.
well, you know what? At least you have the bootlegs for yourself. And
I,
that's what matters for you, unless like your Gish's fishes want to see something. Yeah. So how long were you out of the show when you twisted your ankle?
I think I got really lucky. I think I was only out for I was only out for like 4 days, so I think I missed like 5 shows or something like that. I missed like 1, 2 show day. I was back in the show by the end of the week.
Yeah.
Um,
How long were you in Wicked for?
what?
How long were you in the show for?
I did a year.
Cool. So, I mean, there's a lot of different Alphabas and Glindas who have performed. So, what is it like working with different actresses?
Oh, it's awesome. That
Mm.
was like one of my favorite things, especially when like someone new would come in or say a few of the girls were out or something like that. They would like bring in someone you had never worked with. Like when Mary Kay Morrissey joined, and she is the biggest badass in all of New York City, and I love her, and she's the bomb. She came in as a standby, right, when Talia Suskauer left, and then Alyssa Fox jumped up from standby to full-time Alphaba, and then they brought in MK as standby Alphaba. I had met MK once for like 2 minutes. I had never seen her act. I had never heard her sing. I didn't know what her voice sounded like or what her Alphaba was like, how she delivered the lines, her phrasing when she sang. And we went and did it. You know, just out of nowhere, no rehearsal, nothing like that. You just go and do it with this person you don't know,
Mhm.
this person you never rehearsed with. And it was also really special because it was her Broadway debut. So it was cool to get to be there for that. And yeah, it was just sensational because it's so real because you actually don't know what your scene partner is going to do. So your reactions are genuine and everything is very alive and just, oh, the connection is so much deeper because you have to really pay attention and listen. It was really cool. I loved whenever like getting to work with different people in the same parts.
Yeah. So, when you know that your contract is about to end, what are your next steps to getting another job? Are you auditioning throughout the process of working in Wicked? How does
Yeah.
that work?
Well, you start to get itchy. I'd say probably in the last like
Ironically, as like you're itching your shoulder right now.
literally, I know, like, did you literally the physical manifestation of that anxiety coming up? No, I'd say probably in the last, like, you probably hit like your fourth to last month or your third to last month, and you're like, all right, and you like reach out to your manager. But also, if you have a good agent and manager, they
Mhm.
start sending you out for stuff before then. You know what I mean? They start looking for work for after that job ends, and I got really lucky that I got to do Piazza right afterward.
Mhm.
Also because Piazza is very much my kind of like singing or like I love singing wicked music, but Piazza, I just love that, slightly more
I'm like
classical.
starting to like smile, like, "Mhm, yeah, it's great." Because again, like when I like sent you or whomever the offer, because I emailed you through your website, um, I like just convelling over like how fantastic your voice. Like honestly,
So
I
sweet. That's
no,
so
it's like for people who know me very well, like I have a thing about like really rich, beautiful voices. And like you and Anna's voices, like in that show, like the videos don't do any justice, especially for her, because
sweet.
her voice was just so crystal clear on that stage. And, when you have something that means so much to you, like Piazza is one of my favorite musicals, like I've mentioned. And, when something's your favorite, you're a little touchy feely about somebody touching it and
Right,
like
totally.
doing their own interpretation of it. So that's why I was a little apprehensive about seeing the show at first, but I'm happy I went. And just hearing different people sing it, and yeah, it was great.
That means a lot. No, I'm glad you
Yeah,
liked it. You know, and
yeah.
I was really proud. It was fun to get to create something that
Mm.
people, people that I look up to came and saw the show and would then post about it or talk to me after and say like so many people were saying like like that was true art. Like it was really cool to see like a
Mhm.
real true piece of art that is moving that makes me feel something and I feel different when I leave the theater. And I mean, I can't even describe how special that was.
Yeah.
And like the people that I got to meet, like who came to see the show, like our final dress rehearsal, like Lin Manuel was there, and I met him after,
Mhm.
and like, and then he followed me on Instagram, so I can die now.
NBD guys, NBD.
Yeah, and then like Josh Groban came on Tuesday night, and like I mean, it was nuts. It was absolutely nuts. So that was just so gratifying.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason that people feel that way, and it's not to diminish anything that's been on Broadway ever since, because there's been a lot of fucking great stuff, but Light in the Piazzas is like its own thing, and there hasn't been a lot of theater pieces similar to that in recent years, and that's why people probably feel that certain way towards it. Like I remember I went to like the 10th anniversary concert of that show, and me and like the rest of the front row of the lounge, whatever the fuck it's called at that theater, they were all crying. Like the second act, everything was blurry because I was just crying the whole time. When I was walking home, I was overhearing a guy saying, "Yeah, I just went to this concert because I'm a member of Lincoln Center." It's like everybody around me was crying, and I don't know why.
Oh, theater people.
My favorite thing I've ever heard. Yeah, and it just that show means a lot to people, and it's such a beautiful piece of theater, and it's a beautiful like sweeping romance, and the music is great. So now that we're like just fangirling over Piazza, how did Piazza come into your life? And what was that audition process like?
Again, it was very much a traditional process. I got the audition through my representatives, and I went in, or well, I sent a tape, and then I had a call back, and they cast Anna first. She was
Mm.
cast. Well, she and Ruthie were cast, but they're the leads. They were cast before everybody else, so they were looking
Yeah.
for a Fabrizio who would fit her, and so we were all singing, taking turns singing with her. There were
Can
like
I
five
ask
of us.
what your audition song was when you sent in the tape?
Yeah, I sang Il Mondo, so like the last minute and a half of Il Mondo, and the beginning of Say It Somehow, or it was most of his part in Say It Somehow.
Mhm.
And then in the callback, they had us do the scene before Say It Somehow and the scene before Love to Me were
Mhm.
the two scenes that we did. And yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was just one callback, and I think I was in the building for a total of maybe an hour because they had us go in and out a couple times to swap us out with Anna and have us work with her and see the chemistry and everything. And yeah, and then a few weeks later I got the call and I got it, which was really exciting.
Yeah. Did you, because it was a very quick rehearsal process, is there any work you did before going into the rehearsal room? Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think everybody was pretty much entirely off book before or memorized before
Yeah.
we even got there. You have to be,
Yeah.
because it is so quick, and you like spend like half an hour on each scene,
Mhm.
and you have enough time to be like, all right, you stand here, you do this, we think this. You're like, okay, great. They're like, all right, let's run it. You run through it. You use your first instinct that comes to mind for that moment in that scene, and then they're like, okay, great. We'll go over this again when we run Act One, and that's pretty much it, and it's up to
Yeah.
you to just retain that. And so it was like I would come home and I would then practice everything and think about it. And I also, that damn Italian dialect, whoa, that was hard, and I was not good at it. I felt like Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to do an Italian accent, but it was, so I definitely tried prepping for that too. And it was also a challenge to learn how to not, it was difficult to learn how to act like I did not understand English. You know what I mean? Like that was a challenge in and of itself. And also performing in a different language.
Mhm.
I just had to be really familiar with the Italian, especially like in Il Mondo, because it's a full song of Italian and it's basically just his internal monologue.
Mhm.
And so I needed to know it well enough that I could translate it in my head and then get to a point where I didn't have to actively translate it in my head and I would just know what those words meant as I was doing it. So I would, know how to
Yeah.
depict it, so that was a great challenge.
Yeah. Well, how much time did you have between getting the part and your first rehearsal?
3 weeks, maybe a month, no longer than that. It probably was like 6 or 8 weeks.
So did you purchase Rosetta Stone Italian to learn how to speak Italian?
Well, they had a dialect coach, um,
Okay.
and I just wish that we had gotten more time with him. I think I overestimated how much time we would get with the dialect coach, you know. So in hindsight, I think if I had another job like that, I would probably ask to work with the dialect coach before the first rehearsal, like well before, just to give me more time
Yeah.
to, because certain dialects come easy and certain ones don't, and that was one that needed a lot more time than I was able to give it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to be that person, but a lot of people are hoping for this revival to come to Broadway at some point. So just like, I feel like you know something that you're not telling us, but people are hoping and praying that it does happen. And my favorite tweets about this production were like, Light in the Piazza, this is the gay pride event, things like that. It was just like gay
I
pride
know.
event happening at City Center. Like those to me were like the best tweets.
Yeah, it's so funny. I know it was great that it just so happened that our show was running during Pride weekend. Those audiences were nuts. We didn't expect it. I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't laugh in rehearsals. We weren't trying to play anything funny at all. But as soon as we went out there, people were roaring with
Yeah.
laughter, and we were all kind of like, okay. We were like, wow, we're like really funny. It was bizarre because it
Yeah.
was like the show became a comedy, but in a good way. It didn't feel
Yeah.
like we were, you know what I mean? Because sometimes when like something becomes funny, it can sort of take the genuine emotion out of a scene, you know? And it didn't feel like that. It also just felt like the audience was just having such a good time. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? That they were just quick to laugh and quick to cry and clap. And it was a really great week.
Oh, I apologize to the people around me about like, I apologize if I cry at any point. Because even if I like ever need a good cry, oh, this is such a nerdy thing. I will put on the overture to Light in the Piazza.
Mm,
If I need a good cry. And I'll just listen to that one part of Fable. Like I'm getting emotional just talking about it, where she goes, Clara, and then she sings, oh my God, I'm crying already. Talking about, and she sings Light in the Piazza. Like those, I will always, or like brink of tears cry at those.
yeah.
Yeah. I
I
will
mean,
say like nothing against the show, but like and to give it away, like the dream sequence ballet during the overture, I very much enjoyed it, but it did take away from me crying listening to the overture because I was so
mm,
distracted by the dream ballet.
sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's like,
I could totally see that. I could totally see
yeah.
that. I mean, yeah, it was beautiful though. And those dancers, oh my God, those people are not even human. It's unbelievable.
Okay, I do need to ask this because I figured it out and I want to make sure that I'm right. So for the entire show, Ruthie's carrying around her guidebook. And I'm like, why does she have a guidebook in this scene? And then I realized it was her script. Am I
Hmm.
right about that?
Yes, it was her script.
Sorry. I feel like so proud that I figured it out.
Yeah.
So
Well,
now I have
I
like
think
confirmation.
she actually made a point of sort of talking to us all about it on the first
Yeah.
day of rehearsal because we did like during the equity meeting or something like that. We all just sort of discussed the fact that Encores has, especially in recent years, become a very different beast from what it used to be. Because Encores is not actually a full production; it's a staged concert.
Yeah.
But now it's like because so many of the shows transfer to Broadway, it's like people are starting to treat Encore's productions like a fully fleshed out Broadway production, or like that's the
When you
expectation.
say people, like the audience or the
Yeah,
production?
like the audience. It seems like
Okay.
that, or and this is just what I've heard from people who have because they have some actors at Encores who have done like 20 productions, you know, and so it was interesting hearing them say this that it's the beast has just transformed, and yet the rehearsal time has not, and the prep time has not. So it's like we were like, how do we address that? You know what I mean? The fact it's like you want to remind people that this is not because also there are reviewers in the audience and it's like you want them to remember to sort of like grade on a curve, you know what I mean? Because it's like this isn't really a full show where we got to like delve into character work,
Yeah.
or like really sharpen things like a dialect or choreography or so Ruthie's whole thing was she was like, I am going to carry a script for the entire show to remind the audience that this is not a finished product.
Mhm.
And also because she has just an enormous amount of material, and at the same time she was doing Sweeney, she was
God.
nominated for a Tony,
Yeah.
she was taking care of her family. I mean, it was a crazy time for her anyway.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, and I thought that was really cool that she,
Yeah.
found that clever device. And I also don't think that it interrupted the story because it felt like it belonged being in the guidebook. That was such an appropriate way to go about that.
Yeah. Well, I feel like with you saying that, people, if there was a choice made for people to carry around their scripts throughout the production, I don't think that's really going to take away from everything. I think there's a choice made, whether again, I could be wrong. This is just as someone talking out loud, but I mean, if there is a conscious decision made for people to carry on scripts, like that's
Right.
fine. And if not, that's fine too. So that's just me talking.
Yeah, no, no, I absolutely hear you. I mean, and there was a lot of discussion about that, but it was, I don't know. I am not the type that can do that. Ruthie was really good about like if she needed to be like, "What's my next one?" Okay, it's this, and it wouldn't even interrupt the flow of her storytelling. I don't. She would just work it in so seamlessly, when
Oh,
her character.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Please continue with what you're
No,
saying. Well, I'll talk now. Um, but I remember when she's on the phone with her husband and she opens the book and like she's looking out into the audience, and I just remember her like flipping the page, and that's when I realized it was the script.
right.
I was
Yeah,
like,
I can't do that. I cannot compartmentalize my mind well enough to be present in the scene and also be like, and this is where I have to flip the page in order to keep pace. You know what I mean? Like I can't do that. So I knew I needed to be fully memorized.
yeah, that's interesting. So when you were during the pandemic, when you did these concerts and stuff, were you off book for these concerts, or did you have the music in front of you? How did that work for you?
During the pandemic, like
Yeah.
virtual thing.
Yeah. Well, I say that because again, going back to like the virtual play readings I did, like nobody was off book, and it was just very interesting to see how the actors like read the script, looking at the camera and all of that. So how
Yeah,
would that have worked for you?
I mean, I've never, no one's, I mean, in my experience, no one's ever been expected to be memorized during a reading. You know what I
Mm.
mean? But the difference, the reason I'm able to do that so much more easily is because there's no staging. So
Mm.
there's no moving around. It's almost more like a radio play, where it's really
Yeah.
there for like, or that's what my experience has been like. It's really just for the creatives and potential producers to hear the patter of like what the story sounds like,
Yeah.
so that makes that a lot easier for me.
Yeah. Have you done readings before?
Oh yeah, a bunch of them. I mean, I love doing it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So getting back to Piazza, how did you create the chemistry with Anna in such a short amount of time?
And I mean, Anna and I got along great. I mean, that's the really nice thing is when it just clicks, when you're like buddies off stage, it makes it so much easier to open up and be vulnerable with one another on stage, which just helps the storytelling.
Mhm.
And like Anna and I also like got together and we got like coffee, you know what I
Mm.
mean, before the first day of rehearsal, just to like get to know one another a little bit and sort of break the ice because we knew it was going to be such a fast and furious process. And I think that's also like a normal thing for people to do when they know they're going to be working really intimately. Like I know she also got coffee with Ruthie before we started, and like before I did Wicked, Talia and I met and like had drinks just to get to know one another. You know what I mean? A little bit. Yeah, it saves a lot of time and just helps you to be more comfortable.
Yeah. So when Piazza was coming to a close, do you know what you were doing next? Were you still auditioning? Same process of when Wicked was coming to an end?
Yeah, I mean it's always the same process, that grind never ends, and I have a little bit of time off. I wanted to take some time off, honestly, because boy, it's so funny when I joined Wicked, I remember some of the actors who'd been there for a while saying like, "Oh boy, like yeah, you feel good now. Wait until you get to month 9 and then talk to me," and I was like, "Okay." Sounds like I've already been doing it for 2 months and I'm fine. But by the time you get to that 12th month, there is this sort of slow burn exhaustion that sets in and really does just start to like gnaw at you.
Yeah.
And by the end of that contract, I was so worn down. And also, I followed it with Piazza. I think Piazza started just like 2 weeks or something like that after Wicked. I was like, I need a little break. I also, my all my family lives out west, and I hadn't really gotten to see them at all over the past year. So I was like, I kind of let everybody know. I was like, I'm gonna probably take a couple months off because I want to go and spend some time with them and see all the friends out there I haven't gotten to see, and I want to travel around a little bit. And honestly, the business sort of slows down in the summer anyway, so it was kind of the perfect time.
Hmm.
And then I'm doing a lot of teaching right now, which is fun. It's something I've always wanted to do more of, and I started doing it during Wicked, and it's been very fulfilling. And I've just been doing little gigs here and there, and working on writing and producing some new music, which is going to be fun. And yeah, I'm waiting. My next job, theater job, is this winter, and I'm looking forward to that being announced. I can't announce it yet, but
In
I
my
think
mind, I know what I want it to be. The revival, which
well, it is not like the Piazza, I will say that.
a
It's
girl
not.
can dream you. Well, you know, it's funny. I was talking to my friends about it and I was like, oh, Piazza, like, when is it going to happen? She goes, I don't think it's a good season for it to come because there's so many revivals coming the 2023-2024 season. And Piazza's just going to like, because you have Cabaret, you have Spamalot. I
For
can't
sure.
think of anything else coming right now, but
No,
yeah.
agreed. It's also a tough time for a non-commercial musical in general. You know what I mean? Just with the country sort of still being in a strange economical place since the pandemic, it's like those shows are just a harder ticket to sell than they were several years ago, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. I'm trying to be optimistic, and I can't really divulge much, but we'll see.
That's okay. You don't have to divulge. We'll find out in a few months because you said the winter. It's kind well, it's September already, so probably within the next like 2-3 months.
The job I have coming up this winter is not Piazza. That's something else.
Well, yes, we've established that. Again,
Okay.
girl can dream, and then
Right.
like it's not good for this coming season. I just want to know who's playing Sally Bowles in Cabaret. Like the rumor is like Eddie Redmayne's coming in for a few months and then he's like leaving. Everybody just wants to know who Sally Bowles is. Is it you?
Cabaret. I don't know anybody in it. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know if it's cast. I really don't know.
They haven't announced the cast. I mean, again, the rumor is like Eddie Redmayne is going to come and play the MC, which to me makes sense.
That I have heard is happening.
Yeah. I mean, I was in London like 2.5 months ago, and people are like, you didn't see Cabaret. I was like, I guarantee you it's coming to New York. And I really, and nothing against Maud Apatow. It was like, I have no desire to see Maud Apatow as Sally Bowles. And there's other things playing in London that I would rather see.
I don't know that performer. I don't really know Cabaret that well either, but I'm looking forward to seeing it when it comes out here.
It's a very different production than other productions, but also the last revival they had was a revival of the previous revival that Sam Mendes and Rob Ashford, I believe it was, did.
Gotcha.
This was the one that had Alan Cumming came back as the MC, and then you had Michelle Williams play Sally Bowles, then Emma Stone, and then Sienna Miller, and it was at Studio 54.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's like before your time in New York, like probably when you were still in college, like to age you and myself, because I feel like I'm 50 years older than you. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so now that we're totally sidetracked, but so you teach, where can people reach out to you to teach?
Oh yeah. So
Learn from you.
yeah, they can reach out to me directly on Instagram. That's the easiest way.
Mhm.
That we can just find a time to meet on Zoom or at one of the studios in Midtown, just to work on stuff. Yeah, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah. And what do you like to teach in your teaching sessions, or what do you teach?
It's very much acting through song or just general scene work or monologue work, just for general technique and sort of honing that craft a little bit better. And I also do a lot of like business prep help, so
Mhm.
I can help you put together your book of music or a resume, or just help give like general business guidance of how to navigate the industry and how audition processes work and how someone might come by an agent or a manager and start accruing work and things like that. Because hardest part about the business is the barriers to entry. It's really difficult to start getting your foot in the door because there are a lot of people that want to be performers, you know what I mean? And it's hard to get that initial attention grab, you know what I mean, that gets you your agent, that then that gets you that first step to then propel you to getting work. So I try to help talk people through the different avenues they can take to try to make that happen.
Yeah. What's the biggest piece of like teaching advice that you give any of your students?
When you're starting, I mean, a couple things. When you're first starting out,
Mhm.
take every opportunity you can, because it's just about trying to get experience under your belt, comfortability, and getting on stage as much as possible. You know what I mean? Don't be picky. Like because I took everything when I was a kid or when I was first starting out. It doesn't matter how old you are, but if you're just starting out, walk through every door. You know what I mean? Take every opportunity. And then I also think there's so much power in showing gratitude, like true gratitude to the people who help you, because no one's on Broadway without having had a few people with more experience and more connections sort of grabbing them and helping guide them a little bit, because it's just too difficult without someone's help. Because there is no like Google search for step by step of how to get on Broadway, you know what I mean, or how to start an acting career. It's not that cut black and white and cut and dry, you know.
Mhm.
But I have found that showing people how much you appreciate them really makes a huge difference in your career, because it's apparently something people don't communicate very often, like true gratitude. And I am really grateful to a lot of people who have helped me and taken me under their wings and done favors for me, you know what I mean, to help get me where I am. And I certainly wouldn't be where I was if it weren't for those people. And I don't think they would have done as much for me if I hadn't told them how much I appreciated it. So that's something I always tell people too.
Yeah. So do you have any dream roles or projects that you would like to do?
Yes.
That's a
I
great
would,
face, by the way, that you just made.
well, I would like to play Christian in Moulin Rouge. That would be fun. Because like 6 or 7 years ago when it was first going, I was like 19 or 20, and I was in the final round for Aaron Tveit's cover, but it was also the cover for the Duke.
Mm.
And they, you know, like right after the audition, the final callback, they were like, we really like James for Christian, but he's like 19. They were like, he can't cover the Duke, and this track has to cover the Duke. So, you know, which I understood. So I didn't get it. But since then, it's always, the show's always kind of been in the back of my mind, you know, and I haven't
Have you
really had
just
a
been
chance.
like because like who's in it now? Corey Cott? No, right? Casey Cott,
Mhm.
which that is it. And he looks like he's 5. So I mean, you can.
That's funny. Yeah. So I mean, it's just been, and I haven't had it. I haven't gotten to audition for it since then. The opportunity just hasn't popped up. But yeah, I'd like to do that one. I'd
You need to
also,
like tell your agents and managers, be like, by the way, like I am
oh, no,
available.
they know. But and also you know, if Phantom ever comes back, I'd really like to play Raoul.
Mhm.
So, and if in the next time Les Mis gets revived, because I'm sure it will be, I'd love to play Anjo Ross.
Would you
So,
go back on tour ever to do one of these shows?
oh yeah, yeah. If
Okay.
the opportunity, if the timing was good and the opportunity popped up, yeah.
Mhm. So I told you earlier, like I have a dream song for you. And because you kind of aged yourself a little bit, I'd say maybe like 10, 15 years, maybe 20 years from now, Bridges in Madison County. I
Oh yeah.
want to hear you do that song, Wondering.
Oh, Wondering. I thought you were going to say it all. I actually don't know if I know that. I know it all fades away, and I know one
Oh,
second in a million.
I think Wondering is a
Ooh,
good song for you.
that's awesome. Okay, thank you. I'm going to have to go listen to that.
Yeah. And then I want an email being like, you were right.
You were right.
This will be in my camp. This will be like the nom camp song in my camp cabaret at
Will
54
be the one.
Below, the one exception. Do you have any top going theater experiences that you've had, like seen,
Like shows that I recommend to people.
or just
I,
like something that you love? What was your first Broadway show? Because I
it
mean,
was
it was Wicked. Did you see it like after you got the part, before when you
no,
were?
no. I saw it probably 4 years before I got cast. And I think like in 2018 or 19 or something like that. And it was the first Broadway show I saw.
Do you remember who was your Fiyero?
I I think it was Ryan McCartney.
He was a
With
really not, I did not see you as Fiyero, so I cannot base. I'm sorry, I didn't see you as Fiyero. I saw you as Maurizio, and that's more important. Uh, but
yeah, yeah,
he was a very good Fiyero.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I've heard. I mean, Ryan's great. He's got a hell of a career.
Yeah. I think that was an anniversary year. So that was like Jessica Vosk
Probably.
and Amanda Cooper.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm just like trying to see the images in my head as I like look off at to post-its that are hanging on a computer screen. Sorry. So Wicked was your first Broadway show, but other shows,
I mean,
theater.
I actually just saw my friend Nerdy Mason in Book of Mormon yesterday, and it was phenomenal. Like I haven't seen it in years, and when I saw it yesterday, I was like, wow, this show could have opened yesterday. It was so good. The comedy was so crisp. The vocals were so good. The energy was so good, and the two lead guys,
Mhm.
Price and Cunningham, were unbelievable. The Cunningham is maybe the funniest actor I've ever seen. Maybe like funnier than all the like huge, like current film and TV comedian stars that we like, whose names we hear all the time. He was funnier than all of them. I'm
Oh,
like, how is this man not making millions of dollars on the silver screen? He needs to be. So go see Book of Mormon. Anybody who listens to this, because holy shit, they blew me away.
so just Book of Mormon, nothing else.
That I've seen recently. I haven't
Or
got.
no, just like in your lifetime, like your top going theater experiences. Like I have a whole list of stuff from
Um,
like 15 years ago.
I mean, I really loved Hello Dolly with Bette Midler. That was really cool. The energy in that audience was nuts. Seeing Hugh Jackman in Music Man, holy shit. Oh my God, Hugh Jackman, he is
Wasn't
a
that the same theater? Hello Dolly Music Man? The same theater.
wait, no,
No,
Hello Dolly
no.
was
Hello Dolly was at the Schubert. Sorry. I was wrong. Yeah.
yeah. But no, yeah, so those ones, those stuck out for me.
I didn't see Bette Midler in Music Man. Wow. I saw Bernadette Peters in Hello Dolly. And
Oh yeah.
then I bought my ticket for Music Man like as soon as they went on sale because I said I don't want the same thing to happen to me that would happen with Bette Midler and Hello Dolly because I missed the chance to get like the reasonably priced tickets before they went like insane and all that stuff.
They
So
did.
you have something getting announced in hopefully a few months. Your next thing is the winter. And aside from teaching, do you have any concerts or any plans for anything coming up in the future aside from this
Well,
cabaret that we're working on?
sure, right. Well, I'm sort of waiting for some dominoes to fall first before I set any dates for like concerts or stuff like that. It's definitely coming.
Mhm.
Especially because I've been working on producing more original music that I want to showcase in those shows. So we'll see, but right now I don't have any concrete dates.
Cool. So, final question. Why do you think theater is important?
Theater is important because it holds up the mirror that we don't want to see and the mirror that we do like to see. I mean, it just reminds humanity of all the things we do right and all the things that we need to keep working on. Reminds us what's important and what's not. It's also probably one of the most cathartic inventions that mankind has ever drummed up. It's healing, it's empowering, and yeah, so theater is everything. That's my answer.
Yeah. Well, with that, thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
Anything else you'd like to add? Problems, questions, concerns, life advice?
simply to please keep your eyes peeled for the premiere, the debut of camp, because
Yeah,
it's coming.
for Gish's Fishes.
Yes, Gish's Fishes, listen up, look
Yeah.
out for camp.
So I think maybe like front cover Toxic Avenger, back cover Gandalf.
That's pretty much my brand. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like when I saw Once Upon a One More Time, I said to my friend, like, I feel like I can either play the stepmother or the godmother. Like I feel like I can go either way. Like that's my brand. So all in one show. So I get it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
Well,
great. Well,
thank
thanks for having me, Allison. I
Yeah,
appreciate
of
it.
course. Thank you for, and you can stay on when I hit stop. And thank you everybody for listening. Do you want to like say your Instagram handle so if people want to like work with you?
Yeah, it's James D. Gish. It's just my equity name. So check me out and watch my crappy rap video.
Oh my God, and please comment on how great it is. Do you think
Please.
if like people Venmoed you $1, you can write like a 2-minute rap, like a one-line rap for them?
I don't know. It takes a long time to write a rap. It took me a few hours to write that rap, so it'd have to be more than $1. But there's probably some dollar amount we could come to for commission for a personalized rap.
Wait, maybe like if you joined Cameo, then
Right.
people would be like, write me a rap song.
The rapper on Cameo. Yeah. Yes. The world definitely needs a white rapper on Cameo.
Yeah, well, I mean, why not?
Oh my God.
It's a
So
great way to end the podcast. All right. Thanks, everybody.
thanks so much.